It's the Action Figure Grader, and we are back with another video. We're going to take a look today at Empire Strikes Back and later release mint on card or packaged items. AFA released a few graded mint and sealed box play sets. I only pulled up one of them, but they have a bunch more still available. Most of them are overpriced right now. But anyway, ESB all the way through the droids, and I think I've got one Ewoks line. No early card backs in this video, but the next one will have some really nice early 12 and 20 backs that sold here recently. I just can't fit it all in one video. So let's take a closer look. This is one I thought was not a terrible deal at all. This was a 41 back E, and I think the next two or three are. Offerless Star Destroyer Commander. It was slightly yellowed, and it had some condition, very slight condition issues, but, you know, probably overall, I'd say a 75 or 75 plus condition. Star Destroyer Commander. They switched over from the Death Squad Commander to the Star Destroyer Commander, I think on the 31 back, but it might have been the 41. I can't remember. You think I would remember since I do have a 31 back sitting up on the shelf, but I can't remember. This one sold for $153.50. Again, it wasn't perfect. It was yellowed slightly and, you know, some edge wear to it, but not a terrible price at all for a fairly early ESB first 12 figure. A couple of diecasts that sold. This was the Slave 1 diecast, heavily yellowed, but still unpunched. Again, probably about a 75-ish kind of grade, but mint on card, Slave 1 diecast. That one sold for $222 and change. Again, not too bad. I would say in high grade, the Slave 1 diecast mint on card is probably between $600 and $800 ungraded. I see them sell for over $1,000 regularly if they're graded in high grade, you know, even as much as maybe $1,500. But this one was, you know, again, heavily yellowed, and was the final sales price was accordingly a lot lower. Here was a mint and seal box Imperial Cruiser. I thought this went for a really good deal. I sent this out to my Patreon supporters as the auction was ending, and I said, hey, anything under probably about $600, not a terrible deal. It had some light scuffing to it, probably a 75 plus, maybe an 80 grade. I think it ekes out an 80 grade. I guess it depends on who's grading it, what company, and how the grader was feeling that day. But the box really was in overall really good shape. Clear blister as well. You know, really clean example. Again, $418 for that was a pretty good deal in my mind for a mint and seal box example. Here is that Death Star Escape Micro Collection playset. Again, this is from Collectibles Investment Brokerage, and they have a bunch of different play sets, vehicles, creatures, all mint and seal box, all fairly high grade, but it feels like the prices are too high for the most part. They've all been, for the most part, sitting and have not been selling. This one was listed for $500. It was an AFA 80 example. Excuse me, AFA 85. I take that back. So pretty high grade for one of these micro collection pieces, and the flaps on these are almost notoriously folded over and have a crease on the back. This one was obviously pretty pristine, given that I got the 85 grade. So $450 was the best offer accepted on that one. Next up is another 41 back E C3PO graded AFA 85 archival case. That one had the clear view label up top, but very, very nice example. Clear blister with a price tag and punched example. That one sold up in Canada for 900 Canadian, which is 666 US dollars, and you know, a great price there. And you know, the seller pulled off a recent sale for an AFA 80 that was also punched with a price sticker that sold for 500. This one sold in an auction for a little bit higher, $666. And again, you know, part of it could be the fact that it had the standard label down below, slightly lower grade, versus the clear view label up top. I think if this had been a regular case where the label was down low, probably would have gotten at least a couple $100 higher. That's my guess. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Next up, this is another one I sent out to my Patreon supporters. I thought this was a screaming deal. Clear blister Dangar in very high grade. It did have a scratch up top above the Toys R Us price sticker, but the blister was in fantastic condition and clear, which is tough to find. I think maybe the inner tray might be slightly yellowed. It might just be my imagination there, though. I think it gets the clear label, though, and very, very nice. It has some, you know, very light edge wear and scuffing, things like that. But I think it sneaks out an 80 grade pretty easily, given that I had a 41 back that was not nearly as clean as this that got an 80 from CAS. So this one sold for $345, an absolutely great deal on that, and congrats to who got that one. The poor man's debut card for Forlom, as we like to talk about, the 48 back C. Free Revenge of the Jedi sticker offer. This one was a slightly unpunched, partially unpunched, with a Toy World price sticker. I let a wave to the card back that could probably get straightened out with a stack of books, but, you know, yellowed blister, so that kept the price down a little bit. That one sold for $247.50. Still a great price for a very early Forlom mint on card example. This was a beauty as well. This one is the Luke Skywalker X-Wing pilot on that same 48 back C. This one also was unpunched with a price sticker, and the card was nice and straight. I think this one easily gets an 80 grade, maybe slightly yellowed blister, hard to tell. Could be clear, you know, it's on the borderline, but that one sold for big money, as you'd expect, for a tough to find character on the 48 back C. $536 in an auction on that one. Here was just one I wanted to show you, because I sent this out to my Patreon supporters. I was like, $60 for a mint on card Weequay that's only slightly yellowed. I mean, that to me seems like a screaming deal, and the card was in immaculate condition. Hong Kong Weequay, very slightly yellowed blister for $60 plus $10 shipping. That's a buy all day long. Congrats who got that one. Here was an interesting one. I think that the photos were pretty terrible and maybe kept the price down a little bit, but this was the Popup Saber R2D2 on the Palatoy Tri-Logo. It was unpunched, as you can see there, but the photos were just kind of all over the place. They didn't do a great job of showing the item. And the subgrades were 85, 80, 85 for an overall 80 for this last 17 R2D2. And again, I don't know why the photos were kind of cut off at weird angles and things like that, but it still did sell for $1,056 on 20 bids. I think if he had taken the time to take some better photos, it probably could have easily gotten a couple of more $100 minimum, given that I've seen these examples ungraded in worse condition on eBay, on Facebook, sell for $1,100 plus. So $1,056 seems low to me for an AFA 80 Tri-Logo R2D2 pop-up saber. Some Power of the Force items now I wanted to show you. The prices seem to be a little bit lower in the auctions, although none of these were perfect. This one had a crease up by the hang tab, and it did have a price sticker that was kind of partially removed. So again, this was a fairly low grade Luke Endor poncho, but still, it's nice to get one that's mint on card for the price that it went for. $273.60, which you can't beat that price for a mint on card last 17 Luke. General Lando, a couple of different data points, fairly tight range. This one was in really good shape, unpunched, no price sticker. And that one sold for $345. Good price there. A little bit of edge wear on that one. And then this one sold as well. This one was probably in better condition. I would say maybe about the same, but it seemed to be in a little bit better condition to me, just looking at the close-ups of the General Lando. This one was also unpunched with no price sticker. That one sold in a buy it now situation for $400 free shipping. So pretty tight price range. Let's call that $350 after shipping versus $400 for this one in a buy it now for an 80 or 80 plus condition General Lando. Next up was a Lumat. Lumat made in Mexico on the Power of the Force card. This was a punched example and probably about 80 or 80 plus grade condition. That one sold for $203.75. And, you know, it's hard to tell if the torso on this one has discolored or not, just because the blister was so yellowed on it. But to me, to get that one for $203.75, mint on card, no cracks in the blister, probably an 80 grade would be my guess on that one. That's a really good deal there. I feel like all of these fell underneath the radar just a little bit. This was the Warwick, unpunched, no price sticker as well, and probably, again, about 80 grade, maybe 75 plus, hard to say, but I think it ekes out an 80 grade, maybe a 75 for the card sub-score, but pretty nice looking condition. $355 was the final bid on that one. That was a little bit closer to market value versus the other two that we just looked at, especially the Lumat. Next up was Ramba, also unpunched with kind of the wider hang tab, kind of the UFO looking hang tab on that one. That one sold for $257. $257 for a very clean Ramba. This was probably the cleanest of the Ewoks that sold in this lot, and it still only sold for $257. So again, some of those fell underneath the radar. Here was the Barata. Probably not as clean as the Ewoks. It had some hang tab issues and some light edge wear. That still sold for $260 though, which I think is not a bad deal at all for a mint on card. All of those last 17 seem to have kind of just no one seemed to really bid on them. And I even sent these out as kind of buy it or as auction ending alerts to my Patreon. So I don't know if anybody picked any of these up, but I thought they were great prices. Next up was the Imperial Dignitary. This one did have some condition issues. It had some sticker residue from probably the Toys R Us price sticker that was removed on the front of the card, and then lots of edge wear to it. So this is probably at best like a 75 grade, and it was also a punched example. That one sold for $260 on that one. And then let's see, this Imperial Gunner was sold by South Beach Toys. Very clean condition. It was punched with no price sticker. I think this easily grades an 80 plus, if not an 85, but no cracks in the blister on that one. Very, very clean. I take it back. You know, I don't think this was a crack in the blister, because a lot of these have these weird heat seal kind of seam issues, especially on the Empire Strikes Back cards. But I think because of the large blister style for a lot of these Power of the Force, where it's just such a big area, that a lot of those do have those weird seams around the figure itself. It does happen quite a bit. So while it may look like a crack, I don't think that's a crack. That's just kind of a heat overseal, where they kind of over wrapped it, and that was something that you do see a lot. And you don't see it nearly as much on Power of the Force as you do on some of the Empire Strikes Back cards, like the middling 41, 45, 48 backs. Those tend to get that overseal issue a lot more, especially around the stem. But that one still sold for $495 free shipping. And again, I think that still probably gets an 80 plus grade, if not definitely an 80. Next up was the Luke Skywalker in his Stormtrooper disguise. This was a punched example with a heavily yellowed blister. It was listed for $1,100. The best offer accepted on that was $950, which I don't think is too bad at all, given that unpunched examples with maybe blisters that are not nearly this yellow. This is definitely a heavily yellowed blister. Probably sell $1,500 to $1,600 range. So to get it for $950 is probably a good budget-friendly example to get if you don't want to spend the kind of $500 to $600 more on the really expensive kind of higher grade examples of the Luke Stormtrooper. Next up, this I thought was right in line with market. I sent this one out to my Patreon supporters in an auction ending alert, and I said, hey, CAS 85 plus Droids R2D2 on the Canadian Star Wars Droids card back, and it was unpunched, beautiful example, just light yellowing to the blister, but an 85 plus from CAS. And when I sent it out, I said it would probably end between $1,000 and $1,100, if not higher. I've seen them obviously sell for higher than that, but the card got a 90, blister 85, figure 85 for an overall 85 plus from CAS. And it's sold right in the middle of my estimate that I sent out in the auction ending alert. So $10.55 was the winning bid on that. I think it's worth every penny of that. Absolutely stunning example for $10.55. And then finally, we had an unpunched Ewoks low grade. These were down in Mexico, so they still keep the clear blister. It did have some condition issues, so it was by no means perfect. Probably an overall 75. It had a kind of a big crease right there and some kind of light edge wear to it, but very desirable Ewoks card back. This and the Wicket are the two most desirable in my mind for the Ewoks card backs. So that one sold for $237.50. Pretty good deal there for a clear blister, unpunched on the US card for the Ewoks low grade. So anyway, just a quick rundown of some recent sales. The next Mint on Card video, whenever it releases, we'll have a few more earlier releases and some other really high grade examples that sold for big money on eBay. Thanks as always for watching. Please leave a like, and I'll be back soon.